What's going on, everybody? I've got another video for you today. I want to talk about some Bitcoin news. Now, if you didn't watch my last video, it's going over CleanSpark's earnings. They did release pre-market today, and it looks like the market's taking it pretty well. Last I looked, CleanSpark is the best performing miner besides Cypher by like a 0.1%. We'll look over CleanSpark briefly on the chart. If you want to watch my last video on CleanSpark, I'll leave it at the end screen for you. But let's start off with this Bitcoin news. Here's one thing that's been circulating around. There's some recent news that Biden is trying to veto a crypto policy that the SEC is trying to erase. I wouldn't call this a step forwards or backwards. This is more like a wash. The US House of Reps voted on Wednesday to approve a resolution that basically stops the SEC from deterring the banks from handling crypto customers. However, Joe Biden said that he's already promising to veto it once it gets to his desk. Essentially, if this is vetoed, it's no different than before they started trying to enact this change. This is bringing a little bit of worry though. It shows that the current administration is really not favorable towards crypto. And there's other recent stuff regarding Trump and his positive stance on crypto recently. I just find it kind of interesting that crypto might be a major talking point in the next election here. Honestly, this doesn't worry me. Like I said, this is basically a wash. If Biden vetoes this, the House of Representatives basically just wasted their time. But Bitcoin will be still in the same place it was before this news came out. Now, my editing for that last part should be pretty interesting. Hopefully it's cohesive enough for you guys. But I also want to talk about this recent article. The Bitcoin mining difficulty risks its biggest dip since 2022. And as of the time of writing this article, Bitcoin mining difficulty was about to drop by 5.5%. And this is the largest single downward drop since the end of 2022 of the bear market. And at that time, Bitcoin was only trading at $20,000. Now, as said by mining account Penny Ether, hash rate looks to be dropping, but what matters for miners is the difficulty, not the network hash rate. Miners will not mine more Bitcoin per exahash per second until the difficulty gets adjusted downwards, and this happens every 2016 blocks or 14 days. So the positive there is the Bitcoin miners might see a lower mining difficulty moving forwards as Bitcoin's price stays low, as Bitcoin's price pushes out the less efficient miners, the do-it-yourselfers, the at-home miners, maybe even the least efficient publicly traded miners. And as a side note, CleanSpark did imply some potential mergers and acquisitions in their earnings press release. Now, I want to show you guys Bitcoin. I'm not going to repeat my last video, so if you want some words on what's currently happening to the chart, refer to that video. But basically, Bitcoin's facing a descending channel, having trouble to break above the 50 MA. That's one thing I'm watching for. But what I wanted to show you with Bitcoin here is, in my opinion, we're nowhere near the top. And here's a few indications. First off, an extremely overbought RSI on the monthly. The highest we got on our monthly RSI was 76. Every last halving, the RSI on the monthly has at the very least reached 90. And another big thing is, where are these RSIs at? They are not here before the halving. The reason we got this far is because of the spot Bitcoin ETF buying pressure. The reason we got this far is because Bitcoin hit an all-time high before the halving, which it has not done before. Typically, when you see the cycle top, it is after the halving and at an RSI over 90. And what do you typically see right after the halving? Well, sometimes there is a slow period. Sometimes there is a little bit of a pullback, a little bit of consolidation. For example, the 2020 halving. It took us from May, when the halving happened, till nearly the end of July until we started really going on our run. It took about 3 months. Now, you really got to zoom these in. But what happened at the second halving event? Well, the halving happened in July. We didn't go on to create higher highs from the halving till roughly in October. It took 4 to 5 months. And even the first halving, while we did have an initial, reaction to it, after that initial pop, there was a slow period. There was a period of stagnation, a period of boredom. From December to nearly February, we just saw sideways action until we went on to rally. People that gave up on Bitcoin, people that weren't patient enough, people that sold within the first few months of the halving, they missed out. They are surely kicking themselves now. The reality is, you have to play the long game. I'm not saying it's a bad idea to play the cycles, to take some profits at the potential peak or where you think the peak is at each halving cycle and try to buy in the crypto winter. But if you don't want to do all that noise, look at what kind of gains Bitcoin can give you if you simply hold through multiple halving cycles. Now, I'll preface this by saying, of course, we're not going to see the same types of returns as Bitcoin grows in market cap. As Bitcoin gets higher and higher in value, of course, we're going to see diminishing returns, but those diminishing returns will still massively outperform the SPY. And look at something like this. Someone that bought Bitcoin in 2016, less than 10 years ago, they'd be up nearly 10,000%, nearly 100x. Now, is 100x possible from Bitcoin here over the next 10 years? Probably not, but I can tell you this, if you don't DCA into Bitcoin, if you don't buy and hold Bitcoin, the reality is you have to zoom out. Bitcoin goes up and to the right. Bitcoin follows the halving cycle. The vast majority of Bitcoin supply is already in circulation. We now have the world fighting over the last fragments of Bitcoin. And as we get through the next halving and the next halving and the next halving, Bitcoin will become even more scarce than it already is. Now, I did want to quickly show you guys CleanSpark. Seems like we're getting a good reaction on earnings. I'm personally happy with the results. And they do have potential of sustained profitability as long as we see Bitcoin just go up a little bit throughout May and June. These miners might see consistent profitability throughout this whole rest of this Bitcoin bull cycle. They don't need to do that. Many of these miners have plenty of cash, plenty of Bitcoin on balance to survive a few quarters without profits. Many are in much better positions than they were in the last crypto winter when Bitcoin was 15 to 20,000. And I did want to show you guys that it looks like we're starting a potential new uptrend. Heikinashi says we are starting an uptrend. The 4 hour says this, the daily says this, although lately we've been getting kind of flip-flopping. The hourly says this. One thing I'm watching for on the Heikinashis is the weekly candle. I want to see a green weekly on the Heikinashi candles. I do think seeing that green candle is what we'll need to see a breakout of this trend, and then we can go on to work our way towards 20 and so on and so forth. Now, I did want to show you guys on the EMAs. We are now above the 50 EMA. They are in the correct order. They are pointing up. They are bullish. And while we're still riding the golden cross from the moving averages, we are seeing the 50 start curling downwards. I want to see a break over that 50. That's what I'm watching. I do not want to continue to find it as resistance, get rejected, and then pull back to test this ascending support. Because honestly, if we break this ascending support, our next test would be our low here. If that fails, maybe we do have potential for that 10 to 12 gap. As I've said before, I highly doubt it, but hey, if the market wants to take it there, so be it. Oh, I almost forgot. I wanted to show you guys what happened yesterday. Basically, one spot Bitcoin ETF recorded inflows yesterday. Everything else was flat. GBTC was flat. IBIT was flat. And Grayscale, GBTC is still holding on to that 1 billion lead from IBIT. It's just funny that right when they got so close to flipping, suddenly IBIT started posting outflows and GBTC started posting inflows. We just saw the roles reverse. The reality is there will be slow periods for the spot Bitcoin ETFs. There will be sometimes no flows, no inflows, no outflows, a little bit of a slow period. That shouldn't make you any less bullish on Bitcoin. These spot Bitcoin ETFs have broken records, and I do suspect we'll see some more records broken throughout this year. But thanks as always for watching, guys. Like I said, the CleanSpark video will be at the end screen, and definitely make sure you tune in to their investors conference call later today after the close.